Okay, everyone, so let's get started. This is the first session of our course, China Issues Lecture Series. So, welcome to the PhD program in the international relations in our school. And you are very special because you are the first cohort of PhD students. So, well, here we are having a compulsory course in your program, and this is a course specifically focused on China issues. So for today, I'm going to talk about some of the basic facts of this course, especially about how to evaluate your performance, our class schedule, etc., etc. Um, so I think because of the coronavirus situation, now you are in different countries and you may have different um, levels of access to the internet, and we can't have a normal classroom teaching, and then we have to resort to the alternative option of online teaching. So I would prepare the videos in advance, and then I will send the videos to you by email, and then please download the videos and watch. Hopefully we could come back to the classroom for normal teaching in the latter half of the semester. But anyway, for now, let's carry on with the online teaching alternative. Um, so here is the syllabus which I sent you earlier along with all the reading materials. So basically, I need to first explain about the rationality, of doing this course for you guys as PhD students in international relations. Um, this course is originally focused on China, but actually this is not a course telling you anything in detail about China per se. Instead, it is a kind of practice of your research skills, only with the original focus on China. So that means I would like you to practice your research and writing skills, and then I think that kind of practice would be very important for your writing of your PhD dissertation in the coming years. Anyway, this is the most important criteria for to pass the final exam and then get your PhD degree. That means writing and research is your most important work during the 4 years of your PhD program. Why we need to have a course like this focused on China? First of all, of course, because you are now studying at a university located in China, and then you have to take some time to understand some of the basic facts about China. For instance, for me, suppose I'm now studying in a foreign country like United States, I would basically be interested in studying about American politics, because this is one of the basic facts of the country where I'm studying. So I think for you it's kind of similar that after taking so many years studying in a foreign country like China, I think you should be more knowledgeable about the country where you study, right? And especially because China has been a increasingly important country in the international community. So that's the rationale, for us to have this course. Um, then we don't have to mention in detail about the significance of studying Chinese affairs. For instance, its continental size, a huge population, its history, its civilization, and its currently a very important role in global affairs. Um, this is one of the ways we could think about this. And the other way is that China is anyway still a developing country, and for a country as big as China and is now being still developed, so we could also use some other concepts like communism, nationalism, led development to interpret the model in which China has been adopting to develop itself. So it's also relevant to led development. And I noticed that some of you are also from developing countries, somehow similar to the situation of China. So that's also relevant to your own country's development by looking at the path China has been taking in the past few decades for its own development. And then the other thing you need to think about is your own research skills. I'm not sure about your previous training in the related disciplines like political science or international relations. But anyway, in this a few years, when you have to do your PhD here, you need to improve your writing and research skills in order to pass the requirements, pass the examination, and get your degree. And then you're now students, but actually PhD students are very important from other kinds of students, such as undergraduates or master students, because for PhD students, your main responsibility is actually to produce new knowledge. That means you need to uncover something new out of your PhD dissertations. That means you need to tell us something which we didn't know before by writing your PhD dissertation. And then taking the course in your PhD program is somehow closely related to your ability to produce new knowledge in your research, in your PhD dissertations. So this course is also committed to this goal of helping you to improve your research skills. But the only characteristic is that it has a regional focus in China. So this is the rationale of the course, and then let's move on to the class format. So how we would organize our sessions in this semester for the total length 14 weeks. In the following weeks, we would have basically a series of special lectures delivered by different faculty members in our school, and we would do our teaching in different ways. But basically, there are a number of ways we would do that. We could share with you basically our research experiences. That means how we faculty members do our own research, and then we could tell you about details of that kind of experiences, and then share with you, and hopefully that kind of experiences would help you to develop your own research skills. And then we would conduct very detailed, in-depth studies. Of sample PhD dissertations. That means we pick up a number of PhD dissertations and then analyze how those authors, basically how those PhD students wrote their own dissertations, and how that kind of samples would help you better write your own dissertations. But of course, all those research experiences and samples focused on China. And then you have to take some time to read those materials and then to participate in class discussion. But of course, we know that because of the special online teaching arrangements now, participation in class discussion is somehow impossible. But we will try to do that in the latter half of the semester when normal classroom teaching is resumed. And then this is the format of This is the format of our teaching, and then how we would evaluate your performance. This is very important actually for you to, of course, to get a high degree, a high score in a course. But this is also, the way I want to emphasize the main points of this course. That means in order to help you better practice your research skills, I set those kinds of evaluation requirements for you to take notice of. And then if you successfully passed the examinations with a high score, I basically would be confident that you have taken some time to try to improve your research skills. The first is attendance and class participation, which accounts for 10%. But as I mentioned, because of the online teaching arrangements, attendance and participation so far is somehow difficult or even impossible to implement. So let's do that when we resume our normal classroom teaching. But here, just take a look at the detailed requirement about how many times you could be absent from the class without any penalty. And then, this is applicable when, the teaching, the normal classroom teaching is resumed. And then participation also counts in this part. That means you need to read some research, you need to raise some questions and give some comments on the points we are discussing in the classroom. And this is very important for us to have a very effective interaction atmosphere in the classroom about the topics we are doing. And then some of the more demanding parts of the evaluation is point 2 and point 3, and also point 4. So basically the first, the second point is about reading out. That means, you need to read something, and then you need to write based on your reading. What to read? I just mentioned that we will do some, detailed analysis of PhD dissertation samples. That means that they are supposed to be very good PhD dissertations, and then you need to take some time to read them. And then you could then choose one of the samples and then write something critically about how you perceive those PhD dissertation samples. In this course, I would provide 2 research dissertation samples, just two, and they are now in a folder in a reading package which I already sent you earlier. You could choose one of them, and alternatively, you could also, find another PhD dissertation which you think might be more relevant to your research expertise, and you think it is more relevant, it is more suitable for you to write about, and then you also could write on that kind of sample. But anyway, you need to write based on your reading of those samples. But what to read? What to write? I here give you a number of questions you may want to try to answer in your reading notes. For instance, what do you think is the most important strengths and weakness of the dissertation? So anyway, you need to critically evaluate the dissertation samples. Here I give you a number of questions. I don't think I need to read through all of the questions now. You're also encouraged to write something new in order to give critical comments on the dissertation samples. And then the length, the word count of a reading note could be no less than 1,000 words. That means you should write reading notes for about 1,000 words, but less than that is below the requirements. And then the way for you to submit all your assignments, let's say, is to do that electronically. I would receive all your assignments by email. So this is my email address. You just send me all your assignments. And here I provide the exact due dates for you to take notice of. And for instance, the first due date for you to submit is here. Yes, we only have one reading notes, and then this is the reading note due date. That means you need to submit your reading notes by 11 p.m. on April the 29th by email to me, and then I could receive them and also mark them, and then send you back my comments and also scores. Take notice of this late submission issue. If you submit your any kind of assignments late, I could also accept, but actually this will incur some deduction of your points you will receive. And 1 day late submission will lead to 3-point deduction. That means I think it's better for you to submit all your assignments on time in order to avoid any point deduction, which I think is not necessary for you, right? And then in addition to reading notes, you also need to write a more serious, longer piece, which is the term paper. A term paper is somehow a different thing. That is based on your listening of all the lectures in this course. That means you first need to very carefully listen to all the lectures, and then you need to also take some notes of the topics that are covered in lectures, and then in the end of the semester you need to write critically on the points discussed in all the lectures. Here I also give you a number of questions for you to try to answer. For instance, how do you evaluate all the lectures in the course? What have you learned from the lectures, and how would that kind of knowledge help you write your own PhD dissertations? This is a kind of a way you could write critically on the lecture topics, and this is the requirement for the term paper. Then the required word counts for the reading note, for the term paper is 1,500 words. So that means your work should not be shorter than that. And then the submit date for your term paper is here. So take notice of this. This is actually the last week of our teaching of this course in the semester. And also you need to submit by sending me an email. And also take notice about of the late submission issue. Here I need you to take special notice of this issue. I'm not sure about whether you have any kind of experience before about plagiarism issue. So here the basic point is that you can't copy any of other people's writing or any kind of materials available somewhere else without acknowledging that. That means you can't copy, but you can quote, right? You can cite all those materials, all those other people's writings. That's fine, but you can't do that without acknowledging that. You could quote that somebody said something like this. That's fine, but you can't say that kind of stuff is your own original thinking. That's totally unacceptable. So that means you should provide the sources of references for all the quotations and citations. And this is very important because I will do some kind of I would check your work by using this special kind of software service, Turnitin. Then this would provide me with originality reports, telling me what kind of stuff you have, or you have actually copied somewhere without acknowledging it. And then based on the reports, I would give you a corresponding score. And if there's a index in the report, and if that index is higher than 30%, basically the work is regarded as unoriginal. Unoriginal. That means you copied too much from somewhere, and that means you are doing in the wrong way by academic standard, and then I will give you a very low score, and even a zero, because you kind of committed very serious mistake. And then just take notice of this very important issue and try to avoid all problems of plagiarism. And finally, in addition to reading notes and a term paper, you also need to present something in the end of the semester. What you have to present is actually exactly what you would write in your reading note. If you still remember, you're required to read a sample, a PhD dissertation sample, and then write your reading notes. And then at the end of the semester, you need to present what you have written in your reading notes. That means you, in a classroom, you present critically about your reflections, your evaluations of, the dissertation sample. Of course, this is based on the fact that we could return to classroom teaching by the end of the semester, and if something goes wrong with that, we will do something in order to substitute that kind of requirement. But for now, so just assume that we could do that by the end of the semester, and that presentation would count for 10% for the term paper. They would count the highest. This is 40%. And then for the presentation, because you have to write about a PhD dissertation sample, and if you choose a sample of your own choice, that means we provide two samples in a reading package, but you could choose your own, your own favorite samples. And if you choose a different one, so please send me the original e-version of that PhD dissertation sample in advance of your presentation, and then I could share the sample with all your classmates, and in order to help we to better understand your presentation. So please do that in advance, at least 1 week before your presentation, and also send that to me by email. So here we have a class schedule like this. As I just mentioned, we would have a team of faculty members who would participate in teaching in this course. And the advantage of doing this is that different faculty members have different research expertises, and then we could share with you our own respective research expertise. And then you have the opportunity to learn about different research areas, and I think you would have a higher chance of learning about the research topics that you are more interested in than others. So the class schedule is like this. For this week, on March the 4th, I basically give you an orientation of the course, talking about all the basic facts like the evaluation requirements, the class schedule, right? And then, in order to give you an initial understanding of what we would do in the following weeks in the course, and then for the next week, we basically will talk about some of the basic research skills for you PhD students with regard to Chinese politics. So the next special lecture will be delivered by our dean, Professor Dai Changzheng, and I think you are familiar with him because you had him teaching in last semester. So this is basically the first 2 weeks. Starting from week 4, March the 18th, we are going to have a number of special lectures. Special lectures in the sense that in each week, we would have a very clear theme to discuss. And then we focus on that specific theme in order to know one of the aspects of doing research on Chinese politics. As I mentioned, this is not a course telling you, some of the basic facts of, the Chinese politics per se. That means if you want to learn in detail about Chinese politics, this is not a course you have to, resort to, because this is a course in which we would help you practice the research skills, but only with the original focus on China. And if you are interested in Chinese politics per se, that means you want to learn more about Chinese politics. So I recommend that you take another course I teach for the master students. That is the seminar on China's politics. This is a course at master level. In that course, I will tell you some of the basic facts about Chinese politics per se, a number of basic themes like the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Congress, etc., etc. And then that is, of course, where you can learn more about Chinese politics. For now, please be reminded that you are now supposed to be doing something in order to practice your research skills. So starting from week 4, I and also some other faculty members would, teach you or help you develop your own research skills. I basically would do most of the special lectures. For instance, in week 4, I would do the first part of the special lecture, China's party-society relations at the local level. That means I would share with you my first-hand experience of researching China's Communist Party and its relation with the Chinese society, basically at the local level. Here, I provide 2 reading materials, 2 research articles. That is the way we would do that, because we would provide the sources of references you could use in order to understand the lecture. Here are the 2 research articles I have already published in the past few years on this topic, and I will tell you in every detail about what I have done in the past few years in order to do the research, in order to publish the article, etc., etc. Right? This is the way I and some other faculty members will do teaching on the special lectures. So that means you need to read those materials in advance of the lectures in order to better understand lectures. And then for the next week 5, I will continue with that theme, part 2 of this theme. And then I will also provide 2 other articles I published somehow at different stages of my research, and somehow on slightly different topics. So 6, I would do another theme, China's urban governance. I will talk about how I do research, and finally, I published a book. Here I provide the title of this book, and also I included this the e-version of this book in your reading package you received earlier. I will do this in week 6. After them, I would go on with analyzing with you 2 PhD dissertation samples in week 7 and week 8. So that means instead of sharing with you some of my research experiences, I would do basically analysis of PhD dissertation samples. I provided to you 2 PhD dissertation samples. Here in week 7, I will do analysis of a sample which is focused on China's domestic politics. This is a PhD dissertation submitted to the University of Chicago, University of Michigan. Department of Political Science. So um, uh, please be reminded that if you choose a PhD dissertation sample in order to write your reading note and also to present in the end of the semester, you need to choose a dissertation that is written in English, of course, and is also focused focused on Chinese politics, either China's domestic politics or uh, uh, you know international affairs related to China. And then if it's really difficult for you to find the samples like this, you could also find some other dissertations. But please bear in mind that that kind of dissertation should definitely be relevant to this one of political science or international relations. That means you can't, for instance, choose a dissertation focused on biology, right? So this is a disciplinary focus you need to pay attention to, preferably related to China. But if you find it's very difficult, you could choose, some other dissertations that are focused on other regions of the world. Anyway, it's still a political science and international relations research project. In week 8, I will continue this kind of sample analysis. And here the dissertation is about China's foreign policy. This is a PhD dissertation submitted to the London School of Economics and Political Science. Here, basically, from week 1 and to week 8, I basically do almost half of the semester as the coordinator and also one of the lecturers in the course. In the following weeks, starting from week 9, I would invite a number of other faculty members in our school to share with you their own first-hand research experiences. And they will have their own different research specialties. In week 9, we would have Professor Liu Rounan, who would be lecturing on the topic of the evolution of China's East Asia policy. Here, she provided 2 research articles she published before, and here you need to read them, of course, in advance in order to understand a special topic, a special lecture. And here in week 10, we would have Professor Wang Hongyu talking about China's shifting FTA strategy. FTA means free trade area. Here is the research article he published on that topic. Here, take notice of this due date when you have to submit your reading notes. Reading note means you do an analysis of a PhD dissertation sample, right? I think it's quite enough for you. I then encourage you to find a suitable PhD dissertation sample as early as possible, because you will submit the reading notes here, right? By the end of April. That means from now you have about 2 months to prepare for your reading notes, and then before you really have to write, you need to find the sample in the first place, and then you could choose one of the two samples I already provided to you, and alternatively, as I mentioned, you could also choose a sample which you could find on the internet, and you could have the access to the full text. But please do that as early as possible in order to have more time to prepare the writing. And then in week 11, we would have Professor Zhang Han talking about Hong Kong's Chinese language media analysis. And this is the research article she published before about this issue. And finally, in week 12, we would have Professor Wang Bo talking about the political economy of China's energy policy. Here, somehow the reading materials are different, because in addition to some of the research articles Professor Wang has published before on the topic, Professor Wang also provided you some of other additional research reading materials which are either some of the research articles available online or some other journal articles, and then you are encouraged to first read his own, Professor Wang's own research articles, and then you read some other relevant reading materials here he provided. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to have presentations. As I mentioned, each one of you has to do a presentation of your own research notes. That means you analyze a PhD dissertation sample, and you wrote a you wrote a reading note, and then finally, in the end of the semester, you also present what you have written in your reading notes. Based on the number of students who take this course, I would determine whether we need 3 or 2 weeks to have your presentations. So far, I think we have 18 students in the course, and we basically have only about 1 hour and a half for each week, for each each week of the course, and then therefore I think we would better have 3 weeks to do your presentations. That means in each week we would have 6 people presenting, and for each people we would have 15 minutes for presentation plus some follow-up discussions and basically Q&A. That means it's quite reasonable time arrangements. If we do presentations for by using only 2 weeks, each presenter will have a very short time to present, and I don't think we have any time for follow-up discussion to a meaningful extent. Therefore, let's somehow change the class schedule here. That means we would have presentations in the last 3 weeks, from May the 20th to June the 3rd. We will do presentations in 3 weeks, and then finally, bear in mind that this is the final due date for you to submit your term paper. Term paper means you need to critically write about what you have learned from all the lectures or the special lectures we have delivered to you, and this is the time for you to submit your final work. Okay, this is basically about what we are going to cover in this course. Then, if you have any question about any kind of things, any kind of issues in the course, you could just send me an email, and I would be more than happy to give you an answer to your question. For now, please remember, to check your email inbox regularly, because I will basically communicate with you by email, sending you some notice, latest notice of the course, and also sending you additional materials which you are required to read to prepare for the lectures. So please just check your inbox regularly in order to keep updated on the latest announcements. Okay, that's pretty much what I would talk for today, for the first week of this course. Okay, thank you.